then again, there's the theory that luck is when hard work
finally shows.
Yeah, and meets opportunity. So if you're just tossing about doing nothing with yourself, luck will never come your way. But if you're persistently grinding, putting the work in, when the opportunity comes, you'll be ready to take the opportunity and then...
So it's kind of like essentially when you're training 99% of the time, it's to create your own luck, basically. That's like, what would you say creating your own luck is in the same sentence as mastery, in a sense?
Yeah, I would say so, because as a boxer, you want to be ready for all opportunities that come your way. And you want to master your craft, obviously. So it's a long journey. You're never going to get there in a day, in a week, in years. But you want to master your craft and you want to be able to do whatever it takes in the ring to pull for that victory. As a boxer, you have a specific style, something that comes naturally to you. But sometimes your style won't work effectively for your opponent.
And that's where the key adjustments kick in, right?
Of course, the best boxers can adapt and can game plan for each and every opponent, each and every style. And therefore, you know...
But before we get into your journey, Tobe, this is a perfect time to do the introduction and let the people know who you are. Welcome back to another episode of the Lyceum Podcast. I'm your host as usual, Riyad Hassib. I'm really excited for today's episode, something a bit different. As you can read by the title, we're going to go through boxing and the art of that, violence, aggression, and male mental health too. And I'm pleasure to have Tobe on. Thank you for coming, my friend. I've known him a long time, but I don't want to take the dance floor away from him too much. Go ahead, introduce yourself and start off with where your boxing journey began.
Yeah, so my name is Tobe Lawal. Grew up in Raynham, just outside East London. My boxing journey started in 2019 when I just moved out of Raynham. I moved to West London, moved in with my older brother. I was going to college these times, and I would see my older brother get ready for the gym, go to the gym. When I come back from college, I'd see him wake up from his nap, go back to the gym. He was training twice. I was going to college. And one day I just said to him, like, I want to try this. And he turned to me and said, boxing ain't a game. And he just left the door.
That's right.
And obviously, as a man, do you know what I'm saying? That
How did you interpret that?
It hit my ego. I took it as a slight. I was like, in the moment, I was like, rah. You don't think I got the minerals for this, but...
The minerals, I like that one.
But obviously, now looking back on it and being in the game, he's right. Boxing isn't... You don't play boxing. I know it's a very cliche statement, but it's the truth. It's... Once you get to the pros, even in the amateurs, you're putting your life on the line. All them hits, they accumulate, they take their toll. And...
So essentially, when you're in a boxing match, are you always back of your mind thinking long-term at all times? Like, maybe I don't want to take too many hits because in the future it could affect me in a certain aspect.
Me personally, and let me preface everything I'm going to say by saying this, boxing's an individual sport, so my mentality and my approach might be totally different from the next boxers. But me personally, no, I'm not. That's not a conscious thought that I have in the back of my mind. But at the same time, I'd like to think I am a good defensive boxer. So I don't go out there looking to take one to give one or take two to give two. Like, the objective of the game is to hit and not get hit.
Boxing is simple as that, essentially, right?
Yeah. But I think some people have that in the back of their mind, but I'm also a big believer in like manifestation. So those sort of thoughts about me taking damage, me being hit, they don't enter my mind. I only think of what I want to happen. I only talk to myself about what's going to happen. So it's a reality, yes, but it's not something I consider in terms of... And
that reality is technically in your control anyway, right?
Yeah. If I can employ the correct game plan and prepare myself appropriately for the fight.
Oh, that's interesting. Basically, if you've got the correct game plan and things go to, and you stay true to your training, you don't have to worry about long-term issues like that because you stuck to the plan. You haven't fallen on a plan B, essentially. It's a plan A or nothing. Definitely. And that's the mentality, would you argue, you go in with? Yeah,
no, definitely. I go in with that mentality, but with the experience I have now, obviously I've had 14 fights, I know that in the ring, it's not always going to go how you expect it to go. So you have to be able to adapt,
Grow into the game.
Exactly. And you have to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't be biased to yourself. You've got to be very honest with yourself and know that sometimes when you walk into a corner after round 1, round 2, maybe even round 3, you've got to know, all right, cool, maybe I didn't win that round. Because I know what it feels like to win a round outright, and I know what it feels to have it be a 50-50 round. And there have been rounds where I've been like, you know what, I've lost that round. So I've come back to corner, I've had to reevaluate.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And dominate the second round because...
And how quick is those? Because honestly, just I have a background of boxers, like my father's side of Algerians are watching this, all your side of family, all fighters. And for those who've never really boxed like that, explain that time in the corner, that between rounds, how integral is that? What's going through your mind? Or what are you adjusting? Are you listening more to the coach, or are you more listening to your own thoughts? Or is there you have to strike a balance in between both?
So in a perfect world, your coach is going to know exactly what you need to hear to make those adjustments. He's going to see where your holes are in the previous round. And he's going to know your personality type and know who you are as a person and know what it's going to take to, get you ready for that next round. Because what works for one boxer, screaming and shouting, might not work for another boxer.
So the coach, you have to, in an ideal world, you have to hope the coach adapts their coaching ability to your personality, essentially.
But in my for myself, I think just hearing 2 points, two things I need to work on in a calm way, and just giving time to breathe and think works best for me. I think when my corner's calm, I'm calm. When they're clear and concise. So
they set the tone, essentially.
Yeah, it's better for me. It's kind of like a dog and its dog handler, If the dog handler's like, if he's got a canny corso, myself, I'm the canny corso, and he's all jittery, up in arms, flailing, he's not confident, then the canny corso is going to be an embodiment of that. So I like it to be clear, concise. I like it to be calm. I like to be able to catch my breath, get my sip of water, calm down, and then take the advice and go into the next round.
So essentially, you're like emptying your cup, and then when you go back into the next round, your cup is emptied again.
Yeah.
Allow the round to fill it up. Go back to the corner, empty it out. It's like how can I say? It's like a rebirth 12 times in a fight.
Most definitely. And I've experienced that because when I won the National Development Championships...
Shout out to you.
Much appreciated. In October 2022, the first 2 rounds were close, but that third round, I really had to... That's what made it clear cut that I had won that fight. And that's my biggest accomplishment as a boxer. The national developments are a national-wide tournament in the UK for amateur boxers with under 20 bouts.
Oh, wow.
So I entered that competition with 8 bouts. I won the London regionals, so I became London champion. Fantastic, and then you compete against the other champions from the other areas, so home counties, Northern champion, Southwest champion and whatnot, Midlands champion, and then you all compete in like a knockout stage. And
winner takes all, essentially, right?
Yeah, and national development champion at 92 kg plus, because I'm a super heavyweight, so in my division, anything beyond 92 kgs is a goal. But in other divisions, it's the weight difference you're allowed, the weight discrepancy is like a kilo. You can be like 80.5 kilos or 81.5 kilos.
So fine margins.
Yeah, but in heavyweights, it's
92 plus.
Anything. I could step on that scale 92.01. I doubt that'll ever happen. I weigh too much for that. And my opponent could step in at 145. Do you know what I mean? And then
and it'll be considered a legal bout.
Yeah.
What do you in your experience? Does weight matter to you as far as who you're fighting?
Definitely.
Do you feel what's the key subtleties you feel within?
Definitely. So the heaviest I've competed at is 119 kilos.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The lightest I've competed at is 106, I think. Yeah, 106 kilos. So for myself, when I'm heavier, there's a lack of speed. The footwork's a bit slower. And I'm more likely to sit down on my punches because when I'm throwing my punches, I'm rotating through with the waist. snapping the shoulders. So I'm trying to use the full force of my body. I'm not just trying to throw arm punches.
Use that weight to good use.
Yeah, but when I'm lighter, I believe I'm quicker. There's more snap and sting at the end of my punches. There's less of a thud. And the cardio is better. But I think with my opponents, whatever they present in front of me, whatever frame and whatever weight they present in front of me, I'm now at that stage where I'll be able to identify their strengths and advantages and negate it. It's not, in boxing, it's not a one size fits all. I can't have the same game plan for a slim 6'5" heavyweight.
It's an individual sport. It's kind of like the only way I can find a relation between me and you on that front is that I can't go into every podcast with the same conversation starter. You're kind of like my opponent in a way, you know, you have to come different conversation, different energy, match your personality. So I guess that's probably the same within boxing. You have to match, you have to be the tick to their talk or the bing to their bang, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something I'm very cognizant of. Like, I'm aware of the fact that if I'm ill prepared and if I employ the wrong game plan, any other heavyweight can beat me. So I have to be prepared, employ the right game plan, identify my advantages over him, identify his advantage over me, negate his advantages.
So let me ask you a question, bro. So when it comes to boxing, and I guess I'll come into this at some point too, the idea of sacrifice, how does that relate to the world of boxing? And training and mentality and mindset? How much does, sacrifice slot in there for you?
So with sacrifice, it's a case of you have to abandon instant gratification. You have to push that to the side and put that gratification that you're going to get after the win. You know, that's what you want. You want that feeling of elation once you've been called out as a winner. You want your hand raised. There's honestly nothing like walking into a ring, being about to fight or fighting and knowing that everyone in that venue is watching you and him get at it.
Does that charge you?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Because that's what that sacrifice, that's what makes a sacrifice worth it, because, you know, I love my food. I love my...
this guy's stories, I always just see chicken and rice on the stories all the time. Big plates. They're not even your average plates. These plates used to be like this.
Yeah, I love food. It's always been a big source of comfort for me, so
100%.
I love my food.
So how much food have you had to sacrifice in training? I know it's such a cliche question, but it shows to the test, because, you know, we live in a culture where instant gratification is a real thing, especially with food, where you can go to the sweet shop, fast food, Uber Eats. How many times have you sat there hungry in a cut and you had to use all your willpower to go against that animal within?
So with me, with food, it's two things. It's when it comes to training, it's like not eating past 10:30 p.m. And carbs. I love carbs. Like, I'm a big pasta
with heavy sauce on top, in it.
Yeah,
that's the best.
Pasta, bread, things of that nature. So I limit my carbs, have more veg, and, you know, sometimes I've hit my training. It's been a good day at the gym. I've eaten what I've needed to eat. But it's like 11 p.m. I'm laying in bed. Deliveroo. I'm thinking about it.
You know when they send you that advert as well? Like £5 off?
Or like when you go on Domino's and then you just have a quick browse and then you say, nah. But then Domino's, what they do, they'll hit you with that notification. Oh, you
finish order?
Yeah. And you're thinking...
Oh, you're like, you know what you're doing, man. Stop coming after me.
So yeah, but I believe there's power in taking it day by day and building that mental resilience. And there's a saying that is, excuses make today easy, but tomorrow hard. Sacrifice makes today hard, but tomorrow easy. So sometimes when it's getting tough, because I know some people listen to this thinking, yo, it's not that deep, it's just food. But for me, it is like...
no, but it is that deep, because honestly, I used to be about 120 kilos, about 2019.
I know.
You remember them days, yeah? I remember in lockdown, it's not a coincidence. In lockdown, I lost about 35 kilos, and right now I'm sitting about 88 right now.
Congratulations. I know I've given you your props for that, but even still...
You used to pop up to all my stories, like, keep going, bro, keep it. This guy's to support the weight loss journey. Because I know how it one day properly.
I know how it is like, because I love my food. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, as 50 said, I love you like a fat kid loves cake.
I love you like a fat kid loves cake, 100%. But what I've clocked is that a lot of people find newfound success or newfound confidence after they've lost a lot of weight. Because I'm telling you, it's not an easy thing. And I think food, sex, and other things like alcohol, like instant gratification things that make us feel good, they're very easily accessible. But if you can say no to food for say 3, 4, 5 months and exercise and lose a lot of weight, that discipline you learned there is very easy to apply to other aspects of your life. So after I found losing all this weight, I started to realize, oh my God, if I apply this discipline just to other aspects of my life, reading, writing, studying, university, spending habits, I was like, wow, losing weight or resisting the idea of food can really go a long way, and it can extend into other aspects of my life. So even like people like David Goggins, for example, this guy's I saw one of the best comments ever yesterday. It said he's one of the 4 horsemen of motivation. It's so true, man. I was thinking, look at him, he lost all this weight and all of a sudden he's found new confidence for a career in that, and you can't get to where he is if he initially didn't lose the weight. So losing weight or gaining weight, achieving a physical goal in general, I think you can learn a lot of, you create new confidence out of that.
Definitely.
So food doesn't sound deep, but it is got a whole wisdom in itself, I would argue.
And I believe if I can have the mental resilience to withstand eating certain things and indulging in certain things, I can defeat myself in that aspect. Once I get into the ring, my man's got nothing. You know, I've already worked my arse off to get here. Put myself through all of this, not eating X, Y, and Z, and then what? I'm gonna let you come and step on me? No way.
How much does your opponent motivate you? Because I can kind of relate to this. I haven't got a physical opponent, but I do make up an opponent in my head. You get what I'm saying?
To me, my opponent's irrelevant. I'm my biggest opponent. Do you know what I mean? It's me versus me. I've literally got it tatted on me, and
Moneybag yo, isn't it?
And I've got it tatted on me upside down because it's a message to myself. Do you know what I mean? And
I've got the exact same kind of tattoos, upside down.
Yeah, and I think with my opponent, it don't matter. I believe me being the best version of myself is enough to become undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And I say that with 100% conviction.
You heard it here first, guys. You know that.
For real.
This will be put on Sky Sports in a couple of years,
For real. So, my opponent, to the extent they have a factor, if it's someone who I don't even respect, that might impact my performance a bit negatively. He might catch me with something during a fight, which I shouldn't get caught with. And it's happened before. And now I've got to think, all right, cool, time to turn up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember one time, I think it was the quarterfinals for the national developments. Round 1, bells ring, me and him stepped to each other, and he's hit me before I've hit him. And I thought to myself, hold on, that's not a part of the script. Just started laying it on him,
laying it. That Mamba mentality, essentially, innit?
Because I was not expecting him to hit me, because I saw him before the fight and whatnot, and I don't know, I didn't really think much of him, because in amateur boxing, it's not like the pros, there's not this big press conference and whatnot. What it is basically, say first bout is 7:30, the weigh-ins will be at 6 p.m. So you get at 6 p.m. and then the doctor, they look at your medical card, and then you jump on a scale, and then for the next hour and a half, whilst people are warming up, doing whatever, we could be in a room, all the fighters could be in a room this size, and you could be my opponent, and me and you we're just sitting here like this.
Just chilling, talking.
Just chilling. Yeah, so...
And then the pros is when they start to separate you, create your media coverage versus his coverage.
And then in the pros, you'll know who your opponent is before you fought them. But in the amateurs, you and my man just rock up. Everyone's just sizing each other up and just thinking, oh, yeah, he looks...
How is that amateur room? Is it like uncomfortable? Is it tense?
Nah, you've got to... For me personally, I've learned to thrive in these awkward situations. Nice. Boxing's a mental game. So I've taught myself how to be comfortable and enjoy the uncomfortability, do you know what I mean?
And how much of boxing is mental versus physical?
You have to be physically prepared, but because if your body isn't physically where it needs to be to perform, your mentality can be through the roof, but you can't drive a car that doesn't have gas in it, do you know what I mean? So
that's true. You can't write without ink.
Precisely that. So if you haven't physically prepared and your mind is there, you won't be able to.
You know what that might actually do? Create more frustration, knowing that your mindset is there. Actually, well, if you're physically not there, your mindset couldn't have been there in the first place, right? You really can't have one without the other. Let's be real.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So as much as it is mental, I don't want people to then think, okay, cool, like, I'll just develop a strong mental resilience and I'll go out there and be a world beater. No, your body has to be there, but it's mental as well, because you can put in all that physical preparation and do everything you need to do, but if you let your opponent in your head
run through,
you've lost. And I've done it to some of my opponents. If you let them in your head, just the confidence it gives you as
ridiculous.
A boxer, knowing that you're in your opponent's head is second to none.
Second to none. I can imagine that, to be fair. It's it sounds so silly, but what's interesting about, I guess, this conversation with me and you is that we spoke about this on the phone the other day about duality of manhood. Like, he sits on the side of the physical side of combat, and that's a very highly rated aspect of masculinity. And obviously I'm sitting on the other side where the creative side of poetry, philosophy and writing and stuff. We essentially speak the same language, but we express it in two different ways. And how I relate to that, what you just said, is if you're having a debate with someone and you can physically see that what you're saying is like ringing in their head, it gives you more confidence to even speak even more.
Yeah.
And let's take it to a second dimension. When I've written stuff and I show it to people, like, my poetry, and they react to it in a really nice way, like you're in their head essentially, you know what I'm saying? And the confidence it gives you to say that you're able to penetrate through the surface into their own head and you're occupying some kind of space, it definitely drives you to keep going more. I want to do this again. I want to do this again, you know? And that is an act of, I guess, dominance. I guess you can put it in that.
So let me ask you this. Being a creative person, if your art was to never be viewed by man and it was just to be kept to yourself and no one could view it apart from yourself, do you think you'd still have the same vigor and drive to be a creative and an artist?
It's a really good question. Okay. There's two ways I can answer that. If I was to keep it to myself, it's okay, because there's some pride in knowing that no one knows something about you. It's kind of your jewel to protect, in a sense. However, I am very much a compassionate person. I want the best for society. I want the best of my people. And I like to open people's eyes up to new beauty and new perspective. And if I'm not writing for them, I can't do that for them.
Yeah, no, I get
essentially.
You. It's kind of like the saying, if a tree falls in the forest but no one heard it, did the tree really fall in the forest?
Yeah, and it's like, imagine training for boxing, never to fight an opponent. It's kind of like that. Would you do all the training you do now if you never got in the ring to fight competitively?
Going back to what we said about instant gratification, like, I know this is my ego talking, but I'm human, so I have an ego.
We will talk about ego in a second. I know what you're saying, but let's go to ego.
I do it partially because of my ego. I love that feeling of when my name is called, that's me. Like, everyone's looking at me. When I'm fighting, that's me. When I make my man miss and I come back for something, everyone saw that.
It's your art, essentially.
Exactly. And I wouldn't be doing this. I do love fighting, like, but I wouldn't be as passionate about it if no one got to see my art. It's definitely a big factor.
Right, because I think me and you can relate to this one word, is legacy, essentially. We're doing all of this for a legacy, to leave something extending beyond us. And I definitely, one of my favourite proverbs is this: you have two lives. The first life is when your body perishes. That's a given. We're all going to get that. The second the second saying was, your second death comes when the last person ever says your name. And essentially, I think the meaning of life, well, I've discovered at 23, I'm not sure if it's true. Like I said, we're both growing. We're still trying to learn this life. But it's, how can I, in this life, extend my life beyond my life? You know?
Yeah,
how can I leave a legacy that people go, wow, Tobe was great. That Riyadh guy was great. Essentially, I haven't died, you know? Look at all the legends, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. They'll never die that second death because their names are remembered. They've embedded their essence into the boxing world. And again, essentially, my goal was to kind of do the same. But I'm still trying to figure out what stone I want to chisel my name on, essentially.
So, as much as that's true for me, and I want to get your opinion on this as well.
Cool, talk to me.
That's all well and good, my legacy and whatnot, but whilst I'm living and breathing, I got to cash out as much as I can. I got.
What do you mean by that? Cash out? Does that mean like enjoy it?
As much as I can. As much money I can get for stepping in that ring, I need to maximize my earnings as much as I can, because it's all well and good me dying and everyone looking back and saying, that jab, the reflexes, the counters, the game plan. But if I'm walking around this earth without a dime to my name, or I'm dead and my grandkids can't live off the money I made,
what have you really left?
Exactly.
You have to leave something tangible, something they can touch with their hands.
Yeah, definitely.
I completely agree. And that's the truth that I've only discovered recently. Like I say I was always growing up looking at social media and rappers, and like growing up in school, we always had the Ford Boys and stuff like that. And I used to think, I want to do my way. I don't want to chase money. I don't want to do this. Money isn't the answer to everything. And I kept this strong, stupid mentality to maybe last year. When you start hitting adulthood and then you've got bills to pay, rent to pay, you finally make the horrible discovery that, I have to care about money. I need to leave something, because you're right. How can you're so right what you said? How can you leave a legacy when your kids are still needing money for food? Definitely.
And for me, money equals freedom. You know,
it does.
I'm not chasing a certain amount. I'm not out here like,
you're not greedy.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get as much as I can. Like there's some people you see that are fully of this world, and for example, Adam 22. That guy has millions of dollars, but he wants more, so he's willing to let his woman, sleep with another man to get more money. For me, money just equates freedom. Once I've got the amount of money that I can get whilst my health is still intact, and I'm looking at the boys coming up in the boxing game thinking, yo, them man are hungry, you know, and I've got enough money to be free.
Oh wow, that's beautiful, bro.
Then I'll leave the game. I'm not.
That's literally, I want to do the same. It's like, that's the realization I made. You are a very charitable person. We can see that. And I was saying the same. I want to make a certain amount of money to help the next generation build art warehouses, build different schools and stuff like this.
No, I think you took what I said wrong. When I said them men are hungry, I mean like the boxers coming up.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a saying, Marvin Hagler said, it's hard to like grind when you're sleeping in silk sheets. Once you got to the top in boxing, your motivation is going to slow down. It's undoubted. It's you're going to need new things in life to challenge you and keep pushing you forward. I think for me, honestly, that would be business. Like I want to be an entrepreneur, mogul. I want to be an executive. So once I get to that point where, I'm at the top of the boxing hilltop, I'm going to call it a day, because the type of people who get into boxing, it's not a white collar sport. It's gritty. It's hard. It's not for the faint-hearted. That's why boxers, when you see professional boxers being interviewed and they ask, let your son box? They're like, no, like, why would he box? Because
that's a good point.
Even Chris Eubank Sr., he didn't want Chris Eubank Jr. to box, because Chris Eubank Sr. knew where he was coming from and knew the killers he had to fight, Michael Watson, Nigel Benn.
And it's kind of like these boxers fought so the kids don't need to fight in life, essentially.
Exactly. And if you're in the boxing ring and you haven't had much adversity or trials and tribulation in your life, and you're coming from a good family, good background, that's perfectly fine. But sooner or later, and more times than not, the guy across the ring from you is going to be like, from the gut, he's going to be starving, he's going to be hungry, and he's going to be looking at you like, yo, my man wants to take my future away from me. My man wants to step on me so he can progress and be the next big thing and go pro. And when you pair that mindset against a mindset of more of, this is my hobby, this is what I enjoy to do, it's hard to defeat him. But at the same time, my man who's come from a better background might be more skilled. He might have more of a competitiveness about him. So, it's not... It's
kind of like one of my favourite sayings. It's like, if you were going to enter a pit of cobras, what animal would you turn into?
That's a good question. My first thought was probably a cobra.
Exactly. That's the only... pit of cobras, you'd be a cobra.
Yeah, okay.
And essentially in the boxing game, if you're going to step into that game, you have to adopt that mentality.
I see where you're coming from with that now. Okay, makes sense.
It's kind of like the business world. It's cutthroat. People will do anything they can to undermine you, to get one up on you. You have to be a cobra amongst cobras. You can't be a good man in a bad world.
Definitely.
A moral man in an immoral world, you know? You have to kind of adopt some doctrine.
And I know this is a bit off topic, but just going off the back of what you said, I believe being able to move in any room and associate with different types of people and codes, which is very important in this life, you know?
100%.
You have to be able to make people at ease being around you when they're not from the same background as you, same demographic.
Social intelligence.
Exactly. You need to know, because with my life, that's something I've had to do a lot, you know? Being from where we come from, it's very diverse culturally, and I think it's a good thing. It makes us better as people.
To many different people.
Exactly. You have to learn how to move into different rooms, but that's off topic. But
no, it sounds like it's off topic, but it is on topic essentially. One of my, it wouldn't be a Lyceum podcast without me mentioning a philosopher, man. Don't mind me. But there's a famous book called The Prince, and I've done my dissertation on this. One of my favourite books ever. It's by Niccolo Machiavelli. And the whole idea of Machiavellianism comes from him. And that's what we just spoke about. He said an amazing thing. We as humans live by visuals. Many see, but few can touch who you really are. And it's very true. You're around many people, you see what they act, but you never really touch who they are. Because underneath, we all have this secret character, and we put a mask to show who we really are. And I guess in the boxing world, when you are in that ring, you have to sense out who the true. You're not looking at the surface of their face anymore. And when you're having that eye contact, you're trying to find who are they really under their eyes? Is that a real mask they're wearing, or is that who they really are about? So I feel like in boxing, perhaps maybe after 3, 4, 5, 6 years of experience, you can start knowing by intuition alone who's really about it, who's not about it.
Definitely.
Tell me if I'm wrong there.
No, you're right. It's mannerisms.
You have to somehow touch them. You need to
mannerisms, how they carry themselves, their behaviors, their patterns. You know, I'm not gonna say a name, but there's one boxer out there. He's in the pros, and whenever he comes to spar in the gym, I've sparred him before. He's a professional. I was sparring him when I had no fights. Whenever he comes to the gym, he's got a little entourage with him. At least one person, sometimes a little entourage. Whenever he's at the boxing fights, he's got an entourage with him. He wears flash clothing. He's a heavyweight as well. And he's got a big personality. He talks a lot of, not too much, but when they bring out another boxer's name in the division, he talks about him in a, he applies that kind of road mentality to it. That's how he articulates himself.
Type of stuff.
That sort of thing. Do you know what I'm saying? He's a Londoner. So, but in real life, how I've seen him in interviews and my interactions with him in the ring, he's just a typical bully. And when you bully a bully, the insecurities come out, let me correct. When you stand up to a bully, you see who they really are. The facade falls down. And I'm a creative in my own right. And going back to what you said about that mask thing, I've never heard of this. I've heard of Machiavelli, but I've never heard of Machiavellism. But when you spoke about that mask thing, it made me smile because I can say this confidently here because I'm learning to be more confident with who I am as a person.
Interesting.
And be like less insecure about some of the things I like. But I wrote a bit of poetry in the past. Not many people know that.
You gotta send that to me, man.
I'll try to find it in my notes. But when you spoke about mask thing, it reminded me of something that I've written in my notes or written down on a piece of paper before, and it's I wear a mask and dance the dance of social interactions with effortless ease because when I'm around people, this was in relation to like a time where I wasn't doing the best mentally, do you know what I'm saying? So, and for me, throughout my whole life, because I've been through a lot of trauma, a lot of fucked up situation in my life, for me, when I've been going through that, and I'm happy I'm wired this way, it's always been better for me and it's always been beneficial to me to make everyone laugh and be a funny, happy-going person. So, like...
And making them happy makes you happy.
Exactly. It makes me forget about my problems.
I'm similar to you.
So, primary school, secondary school, college, my career now, outside of the ring. If I'm Actually, sometimes I won't be. Sometimes
Time
I'm.
and a place.
Sometimes I'm on some black Air Force activity. Do you know what I mean? I'm just on that. But it's just always been better for me to wear that mask and interact socially, make people laugh, make people feel comfortable. Because that feeling of hearing someone say something, saying something witty, and then hearing them laugh, it's a drug. You know, it's like all right, cool, I got you. And I enjoy making people laugh. So going back to what you said about that I find that interesting.
Even to add another point on Machiavelli, he was in The Prince. All he was basically saying is the ideal prince, an ideal leader. What is a strong man? What is someone above average? And it gets all political and stuff. We're going to skip that part. But he said a man should be two things: a lion and a fox. A lion defends off wolves. You know, when you're a lion and there's other, like you say, when there's other bullies in the room, you have that lion character. You can fend off wolves. You can show aggression by stamina, by physical strength.
Yeah.
But it says a man should also be a fox, sly, cunning, quiet, a good listener. You can avoid traps, you know. And if you become a lion and a fox and blend the two of quiet dominance and lion-esque loud dominance, you have two weapons at your arsenal, and all it takes is a bit of wisdom and intellect to apply when to be a lion and when to be a fox, essentially. And I feel like in boxing, especially in a world where it's not even just about your skill, it could be about mentality, the slightest body language, thing. Many times you're going to find yourself having to be a fox. Many times you happen to be a lion. You see at press conferences, when it's time for Conor McGregor on the, say for example, on the press conference, he's a lion, loud. You can't really go at him on a press conference. But what was Khabib? He was a fox, quiet, cunning, sly. Got into the ring, then showed his lion capabilities.
Definitely.
So that Machiavellian philosophy, this is 500 years ago. So this kind of idea of Machiavellism and what it takes to be the ideal prince is very applicable to all aspects of life, I would argue.
Definitely. And even 50 Cent talks about that in his book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. He has a friend, I believe his name is Robert Greene, who
felt 4 Year Laws of Power, and they call Robert Greene the modern day Machiavellian. Robert Greene was his favourite philosopher was Machiavelli, yeah.
You see, you learn something every day. I did not even know that. I haven't done much research on Robert Greene or read the 4 Year Laws of Power, but Robert Greene is a friend of 50 Cent, and
they wrote a book together, The 50th Law.
They did. Yeah. And one thing that 50 Cent learned through Robert Greene was him being a historian and researching all these historical events and whatnot, and all these arts of war, they're applicable to today. And Robert Greene would point out strategic things that 50 Cent would do unknowingly, that someone like, let's say, Napoleon or
it's one of my favourite historical films
would use, and he would identify that in 50 Cent and be like, Curtis, people like me, you and you aren't meant to be friends. History and hip hop aren't meant to mix, but Look what happens when you break down that wall.
Because the music industry is actually like a war zone, essentially, so you need them tactics. Definitely. But let me ask you a question that I got from the Prince Machiavelli / Wheelers of Power. Are you always scheming?
Stay scheming. 100%. So like
when you're not in the ring, are you always in the ring mentally?
Definitely. Not even in the ring mentally, but I'm an overthinker. But I think in a positive way. Like I don't think it's a bad thing. And sometimes I've let people into my psyche, and I've spoke candidly about what's going through my head, and literally let my thoughts play out. Like
so you give your thoughts the room to walk.
Yeah, and I'll literally just have verbal diarrhea and just say everything I'm thinking, and people be like, "You think about things too much." Like whatever situation it could have been. For example, what can I use? I'll be explaining a social interaction, and I'll be explaining them like, "Oh, you think about things too much," but I don't think it's a bad thing. I like the fact that I'm very analytical, and I like to think about things through and through. But at the same time, and in the same breath, I'm human, so I do have my spontaneous moments. I do have times where I just say, "Yeah," and then do it. But at the same time, I'm always scheming. I'm always, even where my life is now, it's not through luck. It's not through...
I only asked you this question because, again, in The Prince, it says, if a prince wants to... the ideal prince should always be scheming. So he used a great example. He goes, when a general was walking in the field or down the road with a friend, he should stop and ask his friend, okay, if the troops were here and troops are here, how would you defend the hill? You know, and they start having a simulation game talking about it. And he goes, when he does that over so many times in a year, he's actually lived 1,000 battles in experience. So I only ask you this because it's very interestingly related to your field. You must be living 1,000 battles in your head of experience at all times. Even when you watch boxing matches, how often do you watch boxing and analyze actually tape? That's a question to ask.
So I watch boxing a lot. Not all boxers are fans of boxing.
Interesting. That's interesting.
My brother's a fan of boxing, but he's not the biggest fan of boxing. And there's an argument to be had that it's not the best thing for boxers to watch too much boxing, because then you start picking up things that other boxers do subconsciously and trying them, when maybe you should just stick to what you know. But then obviously there's the other side of the argument that says, you should get as much information as you can.
That is so, sorry to interrupt you there. It's so relatable into the art world. It's how many books should you read? I always use Vincent van Gogh as an example. When he was in Paris, intermingling with all the artists, he didn't really have his own style yet. He was kind of mixing and matching, borrowing from all these people. Only until he got to an asylum and he was completely isolated from everyone and no influence, he developed his own complete style. So it's interesting how art and boxing, the art of boxing, carry on, bro. That's a nice point.
So with myself, I am a fan of boxing, and I try to make that distinction and, take what I think will work for me and leave the rest and not try to take too much. I remember there was a point in time where I was watching a lot of Chris Eubank senior highlights before. He's one of my favourite people, just generally. I even forget boxing, just people. Nice. Chris Eubank senior, I was taking some of his mannerisms into the ring, like... and,
it happens, man. Even when I'm writing a lot, if I'm reading a certain author, then I start writing. I find myself trying to accidentally writing in their style.
Definitely. But they say there's not an original thought, so everything's already been. So it's not, and everything's inspired by others. But I think, I watch all the major fights that happen. I'm a big fan of boxing. If I wasn't as talented and as good as boxing, I would possibly want to work within boxing media, so I could interview these sort of people, speak to them and whatnot. I mentioned my brother. My brother's the British cruiserweight champion, Tobe Lawal, 17-0, 11 knockouts, I believe, or 10 knockouts. He's
That's unbelievable. Shout out to him, by the way.
Shout out to him. Scheduled to fight October 21st.
Sounds like your brother has been quite a big impact for you as far as a role model or someone.
Most definitely. Is
it like a friendly rivalry there too? I could imagine.
I wouldn't say there's not a rivalry between us, but it's more of a father and son relationship as opposed to a brother relationship, because he's my father figure, and
that's unbelievable, bro.
He's very much he leads by example. He's a man of very few words,
Right. He does no talk.
We're two sides of a coin. I can talk for days, and he doesn't speak much, but he likes to lead by example and not really tell me what to do and just do it, and I kind of take in. But at the same time, I am my own person. I have my own personality. I do things my own way. And at the same time, even though there is that kind of father-son relationship between the two of us, he's not closed off to me giving him advice. Do you know what I mean?
So it's like when the time is right, you know how to exchange the roles of teacher and student.
Not even teaching a student. I believe he has learned stuff from me, but I don't believe it's by me intentionally trying to teach him things. But I do believe he is open to taking advice from me. And nice. He does ask me for my opinion, which I appreciate a lot, because I hold him in high esteem.
Highest form of respect as well, asking for opinion too.
Yeah, most definitely.
But let's go on to the idea of ego, because as of course we're guys. And what do you say to people who say ego is a bad thing? What's your natural reaction to such a statement?
I think it's 50-50. I think you can't let your ego control you and cloud your judgment. But at the same time, you have an ego as a man, so it's going to come through. You just have to be in control of it. And I think with your ego, it's like sometimes you've got to know how to pick your battles. Sometimes you got to know when, okay, this is something that makes sense to fight for, and it's something that it's not really worth fighting for. Let me let him have this one, you know.
And
just
picking your battles, that's a good point you bring up. When people say pick your battles, pick your spots, that's what allows you to make those decisions is wisdom. That's what allows you to pick your battles is wisdom itself, you know?
Definitely. You can't, even in boxing and even with picking battles just socially and as a human, you've got to fight with your mind, not your heart.
Oh, wow. Beautifully said.
You know, you can't, in a boxing ring, a tough man will get hurt in boxing, you know?
And we've seen that through history anyway.
Exactly. You can't just bite down your gum shield and just be like, yeah, me and you were going to stand in the middle and bang. The richest boxer to date, Floyd Mayweather, that wasn't his style. He was hit and not get hit. Defensive genius, you know.
And
but
it relates to your point you said earlier, fight your own style. You don't need to fight everyone else.
So, yeah, no, you can't let your ego will get you hurt in life and in boxing, so...
It's interesting, like, growing up, I think every guy can relate to this, where one of the first things, every guy's considered this, I'm going to start boxing next week. I'm going to try combat sports. Yeah. And I always found, I've tried to write about and theorize this idea, why do men lean towards combat sports? And there is definitely an artistry in it. Because as all young men, we all face rejection. We all face responsibility. We all have this idea of legacy. So I say when you get to that 22, your character is weighed down by a lot of burdens or wishes that have never been fulfilled and stuff. But when you go into boxing, and in not fulfilling the character who you think you can be, a lot of rage builds up over time, and frustration and agitation. But boxing and combat sports is a great way to release it as in an artistic form or control it. Have you ever felt like before you started boxing, you was in a state of maybe inner frustration? It doesn't have to be to the extreme. It could just be some form of chaos. Has your ability to control chaos changed after boxing?
That's a great question. And before boxing, the only physical outlet I had was the gym or the negative stuff I was into outside of my family life that my family didn't know about, that my school didn't know about, and that just me and my friends knew about. So apart from the gym, and that's all I had. But every man, I believe, needs that physical outlet, because there's a lot of angst that is pent up in all men.
I feel it.
So you need that outlet, and the gym's a great one. But for me, once I found boxing, it's like I know what I'm capable of. I'm getting positive reinforcement for doing things that were negative impacts on my life before, and that was a crazy kind of thing to adjust to. But imagine one day being chastised for getting into fights, for beating people up and whatnot. Then a couple months later, you're in the boxing gym, you knock someone down. Yeah, great job. Yeah,
great job. Yeah,
good one, mate.
Essentially, you've weaponized yourself. You've turned yourself into harmony.
Definitely.
And that's what makes you a weapon. A man that's in complete harmony with his physical nature or mental nature is what we call a weapon.
And you see nowadays, before, when I had all that angst and rage pent up in me, like, I couldn't walk down the street and you made eye contact with me for more than like 2.5 seconds.
You're just
I'm screwing my face and I'm saying, yo, big man, where do you know me from? Do you know me? Like, I'm not having it. Nowadays, you can watch me, I'll look at you, I'll look away, and I'll look back. If you're still looking at me, I might like smile or make an expression, but I feel no sort of way to do anything about this interaction. There's no sort of my mind.
I mean, that's what makes you a good person now, because you know what you're capable of, and you still choose not to exercise that power.
Definitely, and I think
that's where goodness comes from. If you didn't know how to fight, you didn't know how to. You wasn't a weapon. The only way you feel like you can you feel like you can only show dominance by actual action. You know,
I forget the saying word for word, but it's something to the effect of a good man or being a good person is when you have power and how you decide to use it.
Another quote is, I find it funny those who think they're good because they have no claws. It's a bar,
I like
innit?
that, yeah.
I love that one. I'm going to get that tattooed here somewhere. That's
very
niche
nice.
again.
Very, very nice. So yeah, it's definitely calmed me down. And it's like, with how I live my life now, with all the time I spend boxing, fighting in the gym and training and pushing myself to breaking point, physical exertion, when I'm out of the gym, I'm docile. I'm too chill to even let that cross my mind.
You're in harmony. That's
exactly. Unless you're presenting an imminent danger to me or someone in my vicinity, I have no reason to go 0 to 100. But
this is so relatable.
But it's hilarious though because of perception of myself and how I present myself, regardless of what I'm thinking in my mind, I see how people move around me. I'm hyper aware, so I notice certain things. And in my mind, I'm totally chilling. I'm listening to some Candy Rain, some TLC No Scrubs. Do you know what I mean?
But it's so relatable because I'll be in many rooms with many different thinkers and talkers, and we're having someone's telling me something interesting about the world. But when I know they're wrong, you know, is a situation where I can either like assert my knowledge and try and correct them and show them who the intelligent guy is or whatever like that, or I could just just chill. You perfectly said docile. It's just okay. You take the dance floor. You talk what you want. You know. Or is someone trying to tell me something about something I know very well? It's kind of like it's like before when I used to be insecure about what I know, and it's so I only said I relate to you earlier. It's because you found harmony and expression and release through boxing. I done the exact same on the other side, not boxing. I done it through again like creativity. And when I started to learn more, study more, read more, write, I started to form my own character in a way. You know how to control your chaos, control your feelings, your frustrations and agitation. So when I'm actually in those environments now where people are trying to assert that kind of dominance or similar to the eye contact type of thing, in conversation, it's not eye contact, but when people say certain things, it feels like eye contact. It's like it's thrown to you.
So you see with me, I think eye contact is interesting because I was speaking to a friend of mine, Samir, recently. He's a very wise person. He's younger than me. He's 21. But the knowledge that he imparts on me is amazing. But he made a comment. He said, I should make more eye contact when I speak. But I don't find...
No, you have to.
You think?
For sure.
I agree with him to a certain extent, but it's not something within my nature to do when I speak. But I don't feel it necessary. Like, even now, even when we've been speaking this whole time, I'm not like directly making eye contact with you.
I feel like I've been staring at your eyes this whole time, you know?
Yeah, and he said to me that when you speak, and I said to him, when I speak, I don't make eye contact because I'm thinking of what I'm going to say. And he said, collect your thoughts, then look back.
That's literally perfectly said. And
he said, because when you're looking away, it seems a sort of like a inferior sort of mentality.
It is. It's nervousness. And it's definitely true because I've been talking to many people and you're out. And if they having a conversation, they keep doing this. Yeah, so basically, man's just trying to
you see with me, it's not... If I was to make eye contact, and I'll start doing now for the rest of the podcast and the people see it at home, it's a conscious effort for me to make eye contact. It's not a problem for me to do it, but I don't see it that way because I don't see any sort of like... I'm just collecting my thoughts and thinking about what I'm going to say next. I don't see it as a sort of like... a machismo thing. The only time I see it and make a real conscious effort to do it is in boxing. Like once my opponent walks into a weighing room, now I'm making sure he breaks eye contact before me, or we would stay each other forever. But now that you mentioned it, and I've just spoke to Samir, I'm going to share this podcast with Samir as well because he
sounds like an intelligent man. I'd love to bring him on myself.
Yeah, no, he's intelligent. I'm going to start making eye contact now, but it's a thing
it's
that...
a respect thing too, bro. Okay. If I'm talking to someone, I'm having an interesting conversation, especially about my life, and you just see them doing this, like...
Yeah.
You know, and I can only feel this. I only felt this way after becoming a good teacher, innit? When I was teaching, and I'm talking to students, and they're just doing this. You can tell they're drifting off.
Yeah.
So eye contact is maintained, and the conversation gets more tense on eye contact because it's interesting. You say something like, "I have to think of what I have to say next." Why? Why did you say that?
I don't know. I feel like when I'm talking,
it sounds like a very calculated thing to do.
When I'm talking, I'm trying to stop. I'm consciously making decisions to stop and ahhing.
Do you ever just let go in a conversation and be spontaneous, or you always calculate in conversation?
sometimes I let go. Sometimes in a very loose, like relaxed situation, I'll just let go, speak my mind freely. But in a situation like this, it's somewhere where, I'm conscious of where I am.
You have to be. Yeah, I understand. That camera makes all the difference in it, and the mics.
So I'm thinking of what I'm gonna say, and it's like in my head, I've kind of already said it. So I've got to.
It's going through border force check.
I know what I want to say.
Yeah.
So before I actually put it into words, I've got to find the right words to use it. But in my head, it's like I know what I'm about to say. But
it's interesting because I know the minute this happens every time. As much as I try and be myself on here, you're right. You have to be more conscious and aware of who the audience might be, because I don't know who my audience really is technically going to be. But for people who don't know me, I'm a very spontaneous talker. Like, I say dumb stuff sometimes. But I'm in here. But doing stuff like podcasting, I've realised, you watching myself, and I'm sure you'll get to this when the more you move up the ranks, is watching yourself back, talking. I can't lie to you, Toby. How I used to talk when I started this podcast in February, we're in August now, to now, I'm a way different talker because I'm watching myself 24/7 editing. I used to do certain things like this, that. And you can see why people on media and TV, they're big personalities, because they're aware of how they look. They're not trying to pose. When I first 2 episodes, I used to try to sit there and pose at the camera because I cared, but now you don't care. Yeah. And in a conversation, there's certain things you should care about, and there's certain things you shouldn't care about. But it's kind of like when a boxer watches his footage over and over again. It's kind of what I'm doing with my
So
speaking.
There's like a level of cringe to it.
Cringe is horrible.
And then
horrible, bro, I'm telling you.
And then you've got to also then be like,
do you attach yourself from yourself?
Yeah, and then be critical and be like, okay, and then easy. Go. Yeah, putting yourself out there is not easy. In no matter what art form it is, man. It's not easy putting yourself out there. But
even to this day, like I said to you before this episode, and I still post TikToks or Reels. Ironically, this is going to be a TikTok or Reel at some point in this conversation. Before I press post, I'm like this, post, close apps. Close, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. When I go and I see 6 comments on TikTok, I'm like, time to read the comments. And then I'm like, oh, good, great work, great content. Why is my man talking? And they're like, oh God, this is so hard to
it's growing pains though. And that's growing pains. And that's with everything in life. You want life is meant to be challenging. You don't want to have an easy, simple life. I feel like if you want an easy, simple life, you're going to have a bad life because you'll get to certain spots in life.
Well, then you've signed up for the wrong life then, isn't it? If you think it easy and simple.
You'll get to certain spots in life and you'll relax, you'll chill on your laurels. That's when it's time to, okay, I'm at a good spot now, I've got a good thing going, all right, cool, let me run it out from here.
One of my favourite quotes relates to this. It says, it's by Leonardo da Vinci, I'm sure it's da Vinci. It says, don't wait for the iron to get hot to strike. Strike the iron till it becomes hot. You know, and it's kind of like you just have to take it and hit this life yourself. You can't wait because you're not gonna find any. Yeah, it's just.
So when you say about scheming, that's with myself. But like I'm always scheming. Like once I get to a new spot, I'm trying to exploit it for as much as I can, and then get to a new spot. Then do the same thing there, and then keep going. Like I doubt there's ever gonna be a point where I'm just like. Do you know what I mean? Let me just sit down and put my feet up. Don't get it twisted.
I feel like those moments only last 5 seconds.
Yeah, five, maybe a week.
Maybe a week.
Do you know what I mean? Sit down, go on holiday, put my feet up.
Yeah. But even not then, train. Physically, you might be on a yacht or in Miami with or something. But in your head, like I'm telling you, 24/7, I could be looking relaxed, but in my head, man, there's like World War 5, 6, 7, and the rest going on in my head. But it's not bad. It's always just scheming. So when things come, I'm ready. Especially like, okay, it's going to sound weird, but when I was younger, obviously, I used to like talk to loads of girls. And obviously girls are very, very, they can be confrontational when they have a suspicion of you. They don't hesitate to say. So it gave me a bit of practice to think 3-4 steps ahead of what they might say. And I was like, oh wow, like if you can learn that when you talk to a girl when you're younger and they're throwing all these suspicions at you, you find all these ways to manipulate and maneuver out of it. it's a skill to do that. It sounds toxic, it sounds bad, but it's still a skill. You're guilty. Ooh, no, I'm not. That's a skill to do, you know?
Just deflect almost.
Exactly.
Maybe we need to take that conversation off camera because I need some tips because my luck with women...
No, it's even with women, but I say in general in life.
Okay.
You're going to be at some points on a press conference. This is what I'm trying to say related now. In press conference, where might get hard questions, hard hits at you. You might read the paper and you say, what did you think of it? And you're going to have to find ways to think 3, 4, 5 steps ahead in a split second and come out of something through your intuition. It's a skill, I would argue.
One thing I've noticed that quite a few politicians do is that they'll get asked that hard-hitting question and then they'll just answer a totally different question. They'll take like a good minute and a half, ramble on, use some big words, use some... what's the words?
They just throw a smoke bomb, basically.
Yeah, they'll use some... I forget the name of the words, but... Anyway, they'll use some words and they'll just talk about something totally different, loosely related back to the question.
Like legal words,
like I forget what it's called. It's like buzzwords. That's it. They'll use buzzwords, throw it in there, loosely related back. You don't really answer questions, and now Rishi Sunak hasn't actually answered about what he's doing about to help the poor and whatnot. He's just spoken about efforts and.
Politician, like the only way I can see politicians now is a popularity contest, and there's so many things to that world that I still can't comprehend, and I want to learn it, and I eventually will. But obviously, I've got my focus in other areas, and I feel like in order to understand politics, I don't want to just jump straight into politics. That's my goal. When I'm like 40, 50, 60, I'd love to enter politics. But I don't want to be a young man entering politics. I don't understand life yet. I don't understand experience. I haven't lived enough, and I haven't understood enough about life as far as psychology goes, philosophy goes, and history goes. And I think there's a lot of politicians who speak well. That's the art of rhetoric, which is a good book by Aristotle you should read. They talk about how it doesn't matter what you're saying, as long as it sounds good and it comes out in a certain way, that's all that matters. But if I'm going to enter politics, I have to understand life and human experience, because that's all politics is. They say you can't separate ethics and politics. Politics and ethics come together. Well, ethics is human life, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
And why would I have all that responsibility in my hands if I don't even understand what's in my hand? And I think that's what a lot of politicians have, especially.
Definitely.
But England's a whole nother conversation, because its politics is so rigid. It's like it can't move, you know.
I'm not the most politically charged person. I have my beliefs. But I believe one thing that politics is good for, and that why young people should pay attention to it, is because you need to like learn who to align with, learn how to move in certain rooms, learn how to carry yourself, and learn that
Machiavellian.
And learn that the enemy is my friend. And sometimes that can be true and sometimes it's false. You know, sometimes they might not align with what you believe, but I think as you said, 40s, 50s, I think as we age, the more inclined you become to having political conversations. And at that point, you're making a type of money where the tax brackets directly affect you. We're at that age where it's like, maybe not even monetarily, you can speak in terms of other things, but we're at that age where it's like, we don't really feel it as much as we should. But the older we get, the more you're going to feel it, the more it's going to matter to you who wins because of where you are in life. But
even the political scene right now is like, I get a couple of people messaging me, just coming off your point. Why don't you speak about LGBT stuff? Why don't you speak about relevant stuff? Well, to me, there's nothing I can add that's already not being said out there. You know, I think my only goal of this podcast is to speak about or comment on things I can see coming in the future.
I, Tobe Lawal, support everyone for their beliefs on LGBTQ+.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
And I come in peace.
He does.
That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, he does. Trust me, he does.
Yeah.
But that's the point. If I was to I could even do an episode about it all, but I'm like, what would I add that's already being said out there? Like,
you're just...
For pros, against, I'm just... It's like...
Especially when it's something that, from what my understanding, especially when it's something that doesn't directly affect you.
Doesn't affect me, technically.
You shouldn't,
The only thing that I worry about is the future generations. And I love this idea. It said, what a philosopher is, and I don't consider myself a philosopher at all. Yeah, I'm far from that. My journey's only beginning. I'm at my first step of my 1,000-mile journey. But So that's my phone going off. That's my fault right there. But what I love that idea of what a philosopher is, and I aspire young people to meet this. It's a philosopher. All they are is they're a size. What's it called? A Richter scale. That's all they are. They feel the tremors in society before it happens, you know? So right now, all I'm doing in my life, only things that I'm concerned with writing, the only reason I keep reading is where can I feel the tremors coming in the future? Where could the next danger be? When could the next disaster happen? Not as far as violence or war. War could be one, obviously, because that's political, but dangers, you know? Ideologically.
No, I get
Okay, if we're here right now, we're thinking, okay, we have a lot of sex, a lot of factors, facts and sections with ideas, LGBT community, Black Lives Matter community, white supremacist community, religious communities, different where is the tremors here? Like, where could something go on? And the only tremor that I can really feel right now is the rise of Islam. That is one for sure. Obviously, in the UK, especially in the UK, we're not really a religious society; it's a secular society, and we have a lot of young people with mental health. A lot of young men are going to prison. Therefore, there's a meaningless crisis where what do I look up to other than money? If money's not answering it for me, where can I find my meaning? And obviously, the rise of Islam is a very good thing.
I'll be honest. When it comes to religion and sex and like in terms of like LGBTQ identification and even politics, I'm not the most like versed person.
Don't have to be, man. No, respect. This is just where I'm coming out a little bit, man.
This is way out of my like ballpark. So I can only listen. I can't add much because I'm not as informed as one should be on those things, and I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, but you where you are in your life, you have a mission. I was just speaking about kind of like my side of my mission.
Yeah, no, mine is very tunnel visioned. I don't think myself with things that don't concern.
I wouldn't want you to.
I live a very blinded life. I'm kind of like a horse with them blockers on or whatever you call them. You know when you see, and I just focus on what I need to focus on. No, and that's boxing.
I have unshakable faith in you, though, honestly. And when I was talking about all this stuff, it's just kind of like expressing what my future I could imagine it to be.
I understand.
And we'll meet each other at the summit one day, you know, 100%. People remember that. Oh, like, what? Remember that time them two? I don't know them two knew each other all this time. Hopefully, but what I'm going to do is before we wrap up, I'm going to make you do a couple of things, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Have you got a quote that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, you got one, yeah?
Yeah, I've got a quote.
We'll do that.
Time?
Yeah, we'll start with the quote each. So you go first, bro.
So my quote is memento mori. It means in Latin it translates to English. Remember, we all must die. To some, that might be quite drab, a bit dark, but to me and to a lot of people, what that makes them believe and what that inspires in them is that take every day with as much vigor as you can, make the most of it. Nothing is promised. Don't take life for granted. Whilst you're here, capitalize on everything. Don't turn the opportunities down. Don't waste your time. Because the day that your day might be tomorrow where it's all said and done and dusted, like we could walk out of the studio and it's over for whatever reason.
Life is fragile.
Life is fragile, and I love that quote because it's just things back into perspective whenever I think of it. And when you asked me that question, think for quote, it instantly came to mind because it's very grounding and it's very humbling because we take life for granted so much. Some days we just roll out of bed and we just go through the motions and we don't consider that tomorrow might be the day we die, and we put things off. We say tomorrow. And when I remember that quote, I maximize the day. When I remember that quote, I'm like, yeah.
It reminds me of that quote, "Carpe diem, seize the day." It's kind of like you have one day. Live today as if it was your last.
Exactly, and when I remember that I'm mortal, it gives me that extra.
Empowers you. Death essentially drives life.
Yeah, definitely.
And people who are scared of death, well, you're not cut out for life then, because death comes out of life. If you can't cope with the idea of death, then life is too much for you from the beginning.
definitely is a theme that has been present in my life from early. So something I'm more
attuned to
than others.
I can completely relate to you on this part.
Yeah, that's my quote, memento mori.
We'll go with the Latin quote. One of my favorite quotes is amor fati. It means love of one's own fate. And there's only two ways you can live life. It kind of relates to that idea of things you can control versus things you can't control. And essentially, it's a much more romanticized version, whereas amor fati. In life, there's some situations that you can control, okay? And that's when you should will yourself to control. You grab fate by the hair and you said, no, I want this to be my way. But there's other aspects of your life that you can't control. And that's when fate's hair is bald. There's nothing to grab. And the only thing you can do is show love to fate. I love you. Thank you for being a part of my story. Like I said many times, I always relate this back to my dad. I lost when I was 13. I know I'm sick of people always sick of me hearing that. But again, I have to love my own fate. There's nothing for me to grab. There's nothing for me to control here. What can I do, you know? So I have to love fate. So yeah, that's one of my favourite quotes. Amor fati, love of one's own fate. And the next thing to wrap up here, and this is a new thing I've been doing, what would you have to pretend the camera essentially is the 13-year-old version of yourself. And then we're going to do 13 and we're going to do 50. So what would you say to the 13-year-old version of yourself, and what would you say to the 50-year-old version of yourself?
So let me think back. So 13, I was born in 2000, so this is 2013. What was I doing when I was 13? I see year 8, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so year 8, D is still alive. I'm in secondary school. Okay. If I was to chat to 13, so is the camera 13?
Yeah, camera is 13. Okay.
This is great. This is great. Okay. Damn. All right. The first thing I'm gonna say is that grandma and all the women in your life lied. All because you're tall and you're handsome. Girls aren't just gonna come flocking. They're not just gonna fall at your feet. You've got to like get somewhere in life first. You know, that's a scam. You're not just going to get girls like left, right and centre. But more importantly, where you're going is fine. Everything that's happened to you is fine. Keep thinking the way you think. You're not crazy. If anything, you're more of a genius than you are crazy. Keep making people laugh. Just work harder, you know. The only thing that I can tell you that will maybe help you is learn how valuable sacrifice is, and learn how valuable hard work is. The more you sacrifice and the more you work hard, the more doors you'll open for yourself, and you have more options. Stay true to yourself and listen to your gut. Always listen to your gut instincts. Your gut instinct is never wrong. If you're about to do something and it feels, don't do it. If someone says go left, but you think you should go right. Don't go left. Just stay true to yourself. That's what I'll tell myself, honestly. What
about the 50-year-old version of yourself?
Did you make it? Are you there? By 50, I need 100 M's by 50. So if you don't have 100 M's, you're taking a piss.
This episode cost you 50 million, you know. So I'm going to send an invoice to you.
Send an invoice in 2050.
Yeah.
I hope you haven't forsaken yourself. I hope you're happy with how people perceive you. I hope you have freedom, and I hope you have a good relationship with your kids and grandkids, and I hope the generational curses that have plagued our family you've broken, and you're a good man and you're in your kid's life. Yeah, that's what I'd say. That's a great segment. That was.
You see, I've never still found out what to say to a 13-year-old yourself. The only thing I can really say to my future is, to the 50-year-old Riyadh, I hope you've picked the right woman. One of the best advice I've ever received from my mum, which she's coming on my podcast soon, is your duty as a parent has already started. You can't pick your parents, but you can pick the parents of your kids. So I hope the 50-year-old me has picked the right wife, a good mother to, you know, because I don't want to be one of those single mom, single dads. I want my kids to raise up in the family. So that's the only thing I can think of right now. And this is my podcast. So through time, I guess I'm going to add more. But yeah, I think picking a right woman is definitely a life skill and a bit of luck too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Definitely not.
But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you, Toby.
Much
coming on.
appreciated.